I thought this dinner would change my life. After 3 years of being his little secret, Brad was finally taking me to meet his parents. I thought it meant he was proud of me, that we were ready to build something real. But when I walked into his house, his dad immediately asked,
Oh, hola, do you speak Mexican?
I laughed awkwardly, unsure if he was joking. Spanish, I said, keeping my voice light. Brad didn't say a word. His mother swept in next, all pearls and perfume. She gave me a once-over, then said,
Oh, wow, you're so tan. Where are your people from?
that word hit like a slap wrapped in a compliment. I'd straightened my hair, softened my accent, chosen the most boring dress I owned. But it didn't matter. They'd already decided I didn't belong. But as we walked up to their massive front door, Brad stopped me.
Listen, just be yourself, but maybe tone it down a little. My parents are pretty traditional. My stomach dropped. Tone what down? You know, the whole Latina thing. Maybe don't mention your dad's side of the family tonight. I stared at him. The whole Latina thing? Come on, Sophia, you know what I mean. They're old school. Just ease them into it. He was asking me to hide half of who I was, but I smiled anyway. Okay. The door opened before we could knock. Brad's mother stood there in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my car. Perfectly styled blonde hair, jewelry that screamed old money. Bradley! She hugged him tight, then turned to me with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. You must be Sophia. She looked me up and down. I watched her take in my slightly darker skin, my dark hair, the features that clearly showed my heritage. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Whitman. Please, call me Catherine. Her voice was ice cold. Brad's father appeared behind her. Richard Whitman. He shook my hand briefly. So you're the girl Bradley's been seeing. Girl, not woman. Girl. We walked into their dining room. Everything was white and gold and expensive, the kind of place where you're afraid to touch anything. During cocktails, they asked about my job. I work in business development, I said. Oh, how nice, Catherine said in that tone that meant it wasn't nice at all. What kind of business? Corporate partnerships, mergers and acquisitions? At a big firm? Richard asked. Family business? They exchanged a look. Small family business, Catherine said. Not a question. A dismissal. When we sat down for dinner, it got worse. Where did you go to school, dear? Catherine asked while the housekeeper served the first course. Bentley University, in Massachusetts. Catherine's face fell slightly. Oh, I haven't heard of that one. It's a small private school. How nice, she said with a patronizing smile. Was that on scholarship? The question hit like a slap. The way she said it made it sound like a character flaw. And where are you from originally? Richard asked. Here it comes. Born in San Francisco, but my father's family is from Mexico. The silence was deafening. I see, Catherine said finally. And your mother? American. Born in Chicago. What does he do? Richard asked. I opened my mouth to answer, but Brad jumped in. Some business stuff, nothing too exciting. He was looking at me with panic in his eyes, begging me not to elaborate, so I didn't. The conversation moved on. To Brad's work, to their country club, to people I'd never heard of. The Henderson's daughter just got engaged, Catherine said, to that lovely boy from the Morrison family. You know, the ones with the shipping fortune. Smart match, Richard agreed. Good bloodlines on both sides. Bloodlines, like we were dogs at a show. It's so important to marry within your level, Catherine continued, glancing at me. People from similar backgrounds just understand each other better. I took a sip of wine, smiled politely. I mean, mixed relationships can be so challenging, she went on. The cultural differences, the family complications. My jaw clenched. Cultural differences can be beautiful too. Oh, I'm sure, Catherine said dismissively. In theory. Brad was staring at his plate, saying nothing. When the main course arrived, Richard started talking about work. We're in the middle of negotiating a massive deal, he said. Could be worth hundreds of millions if it goes through. What kind of deal? I asked. Technology acquisition. There's this American conglomerate that owns everything from tech companies to real estate. The old man who runs it is notoriously difficult to work with. My pulse quickened. What's the company called? I asked casually. Sterling Industries, Richard said. Ever heard of it? I nearly choked on my wine. Can't say I have. The CEO is this reclusive billionaire, Robert Sterling. Built his empire from nothing, supposedly. Very protective of his companies. Won't sell to just anyone. My father. They were talking about my father. We've been trying to get a meeting with him for months, Richard continued. My company wants to acquire one of his tech subsidiaries. Could be the deal of the decade. Why won't he meet with you? I asked. Richard's face darkened. Probably thinks we're not good enough for him. These new money types get so arrogant. New money. My father, who'd built a billion-dollar empire from a single construction job. Maybe he's just particular about who he works with, I suggested. Please. Catherine waved her hand. Money is money. Business is business. He should be grateful for the opportunity. Some of these people, Richard added, they hold grudges. Probably thinks all established companies are trying to take advantage of him. Immigrant families. My chest was getting tight. Maybe he has good reason to be careful, I said quietly. Oh, you're probably right, Catherine said with fake sympathy. It must be hard for people like that to trust, coming from different circumstances. People like that, like me. Brad was still saying nothing, just sitting there letting his parents tear apart my heritage, my family. Anyway, Richard continued, we'll get the deal eventually. Men like Sterling always come around when the price is right. Men like Sterling, I repeated. You know, emotional. Pride gets in the way of good business. I set down my fork. Excuse me for a moment. I walked to their guest bathroom, locked the door, stared at myself in the mirror. My father hadn't built his empire by being emotional. He'd built it by being smarter than everyone who underestimated him, by working twice as hard because people like the Whitmans thought he didn't belong. I pulled out my phone, hit speed dial. Sweetheart. My father's warm voice filled my ear. How's dinner? Interesting, Dad. Quick question. Are you still considering that acquisition offer from Whitman Financial? Yes. Why? Just curious? Have you made a decision? Not yet. Richard Whitman seems like an ass, to be honest. But the numbers are good. I smiled for the first time all evening. What if I told you he's worse than you think? Tell me everything. When I got back to the table, they were talking about their vacation home in Aspen. We just can't find good help anymore, Catherine was saying. The last housekeeper barely spoke English. It's getting harder to find quality people, Richard agreed. Everyone wants handouts these days instead of earning their way. Like my grandmother, who'd worked 2 jobs for 40 years to put my father through college. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Call me if you need anything, sweetheart. I love you. Everything all right? Brad asked. Just family business. Oh, right, Catherine said. You mentioned your father has some little company. Little company. That employed 12,000 people across 3 countries. He does okay, I said. What exactly does he do again? Richard asked. I looked at Brad. He was shaking his head slightly. Still wanting me to hide? He's in acquisitions mostly, some real estate. Tech ventures. Sounds diversified, Richard said politely. The way you'd talk to a child playing pretend. He is. Well, maybe someday he'll work his way up to the big leagues, Catherine said with a patronizing smile. The big leagues. My father, who'd just been invited to dinner at the White House. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Dad lit up with his contact photo. I should take this, I said. It's my father. At dinner? Catherine looked scandalized. It's important, I answered. Hi, Dad. Sweetheart, I've been thinking about what you said. This Whitman deal. Yeah? Tell me more about why you think he's worse than I thought. Richard was leaning forward, trying to listen. His face was getting red. Well, I said, let's just say their family values don't align with ours. How so? They have some very specific ideas about who deserves respect. My father's voice got sharp. Explain. I looked directly at Richard. They seem to think that people from Mexican families are emotional, that we don't understand real business. Richard was going pale now. They also think we should be grateful for any opportunity established companies give us, I continued. Is that so? Yes. And they're not particularly fond of, how did they put it, mixed relationships. My father was quiet for a long moment. And you're at dinner with these people, why? I'm dating their son. Another pause. And how is he handling this? I looked at Brad, who was staring at me with wide eyes. He's letting it happen. I see. Put me on speaker, sweetheart. My heart started racing. Dad, put me on speaker. I looked around the table. My father would like to speak to everyone. Oh, Catherine looked flustered. How unexpected. I hit the speaker button. Good evening. My father's voice filled the room. This is Robert Sterling. Richard's fork clattered to his plate. I understand you've been trying to reach me about an acquisition, Mr. Whitman. Richard's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. Yes, Mr. Morales. What an unexpected. Indeed, my daughter has been telling me about your dinner conversation. Catherine had gone completely white. Your daughter? She whispered. Sophia is my youngest, my father said proudly. She's actually our head of strategic partnerships. She makes most of our acquisition decisions. The silence was deafening. I have to say, Mr. Whitman, I'm disappointed. Not in your offer, but in your character. Richard was sweating now. Mr. Morales, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. My daughter heard you call me emotional, say that immigrant families hold grudges, suggest that I should be grateful for your offer. I didn't. I mean, you also told my daughter that mixed relationships are challenging, that people should marry within their level. Catherine made a small choking sound. Mr. Sterling, Richard tried again. If I said anything offensive, you did. To my daughter, in front of your son, who said nothing to defend her. I looked at Brad. He was staring at his hands. But here's what's interesting, my father continued. You called me reclusive, arrogant, said I think established companies aren't good enough for me. Sir, you're right about one thing. You're not good enough. Not because you're established money, but because you lack integrity. Richard was turning purple. The acquisition is off, Mr. Whitman, permanently. Mr. Sterling, please, let's discuss this. There's nothing to discuss. Sophia, sweetheart, are you ready to come home? I stood up from the table. Actually, Dad, I'm going to call my driver. Your driver? Catherine squeaked. Yes, Miguel should be in the area. I hung up and immediately called Miguel. Can you pick me up in Atherton? Text me when you're outside. I looked around the table. Thank you for dinner? Sophia, wait. Richard stood up, his voice desperate. Let's talk about this. Your father. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. You didn't get off on the wrong foot with my father, Mr. Whitman. You got off on the wrong foot with me. This is all a misunderstanding, Catherine said frantically. We had no idea who you were. Exactly. You treated me badly because you thought I was nobody. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Sophia, please, Brad finally spoke. Don't do this. I turned to him. Don't do what? Stand up for myself? Something you couldn't do all evening? I was trying to keep the peace. You were trying to keep me quiet. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. Miguel was outside. The real tragedy, I said, looking at Richard, is that this could have been a great partnership. My father's companies could have used your distribution networks. Your firm could have benefited from our technology. Richard's face was desperate now. It still could be. Number. It couldn't. Because now my father knows what kind of man you are. And so do I. I picked up my purse. For what it's worth, Mrs. Whitman, your son is a good person, but he's weak, and weakness isn't something our family respects. I walked toward the door. Sophia, Brad called after me. I turned back one last time. Your parents asked if I was from your level. I said, they were right to worry. I'm not. I paused at the doorway. I'm from a much higher one. I walked out to find Miguel standing beside our black Bentley. He opened the door for me with a small smile. Good evening, Miss Sophia. How was dinner? Educational, Miguel. Very educational. As we drove away, my phone started buzzing with texts from Brad. Sophia, please come back. They didn't mean it. My parents were just surprised. They'll apologize. This is crazy. You're ruining everything over a misunderstanding. Why didn't you tell me who your father was? We can fix this. Just call your dad back. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called my father. How are you feeling, sweetheart? Proud, I said. For the first time in 3 years, proud. Good. You should never let anyone make you feel small because of where you come from. I know, Dad. I'm sorry I let it go on so long. You were trying to make it work. That's not wrong. But some people, they show you who they are. Believe them. The next morning, my assistant forwarded me an email from Richard Whitman, begging for another chance, offering better terms, swearing that he respected my family and our heritage. I deleted it without reading the whole thing. 2 days later, Brad showed up at my apartment. Sophia, please, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. My parents were wrong. They know that now. Your parents were honest. They showed me exactly what they think of people like me. People like you? Mixed race, new money, immigrant families. Take your pick. They'll change. Give them time. I looked at him standing in my doorway. This man I'd loved for 3 years. This man who'd let his parents tear me apart without saying a word. Brad, they didn't change their minds about me because they realized I was a good person. They changed their minds because they found out I was rich. That is exactly what happened. And you know what the worst part is? He waited. You knew who my father was. You've always known. But you were embarrassed by my background anyway. His face went red. That's not true. You asked me to tone down the whole Latina thing. You jumped in to downplay my father's business when they asked. You let them insult my heritage for 3 hours without saying a word. I was trying to avoid conflict. You were trying to avoid being associated with me. He had no answer for that. 3 weeks later, I got a call from my father. Sweetheart, I have news. What's that? Whitman Financial just lost their biggest client. Apparently, word got around about how they treat people. Really? Really. Their stock is down 30%. Richard Whitman is scrambling to save his company. I felt a small smile creep across my face. That's unfortunate. Indeed. Oh, and sweetheart? Yes? I'm proud of you. For walking away. For knowing your worth. Thanks, Dad. Your grandmother called this morning. She heard about what happened. What did Grandma say? She said to tell you that she didn't work 2 jobs for 40 years so her granddaughter would let some rich asshole treat her badly. I laughed. I love her. She loves you too. We all do. Exactly as you are. 6 months later, I was promoted to Vice President of Strategic Development. My first major acquisition, a small tech company that specialized in translation software. The CEO was a young immigrant from El Salvador who'd built something beautiful and was looking for partners who understood his vision. We gave him exactly what Whitman Financial couldn't: respect. A year after the dinner, I ran into Brad at a conference in San Francisco. He looked older, tired. Sophia. Hi. Brad. You look incredible. Thank you. I heard about your promotion, VP at 28. That's amazing. Thanks. Listen, I know this is probably too little too late, but I owe you an apology. I waited. I should have defended you, should have stood up to my parents, should have been proud to be with you instead of trying to hide who you were. Yes, you should have. Is there any chance Could we maybe try again? I'm different now. I looked at him. This man who'd asked me to make myself smaller, who'd sat silently while his parents insulted everything I came from. Brad, you're not different. You just finally understand what you lost. So that's it? That's it? I started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who makes you proud. Someone you don't want to hide. I had that, he said quietly. I was just too stupid to see it. Yes, I agreed. You were. 2 years later, our company acquired Whitman Financial's assets at a fraction of what they were worth before that dinner. Richard Whitman had to sell to pay his debts. My father let me handle the negotiations personally. I was fair, generous even, but I made sure Richard Whitman knew exactly who was buying his life's work. The girl he'd thought wasn't good enough for his son, the mixed-race woman he'd dismissed as emotional and grateful. The immigrant's daughter who'd proven that respect isn't about bloodlines or country clubs or how many generations your family has had money. It's about character. And some people have it, and some people don't.